Thank you for staying with us. This is the South African Morning. Let's bring you this now. The unrest in KwaZulu-Natal brought with, of course, death in the water. Now, with the burning down of the United Phosphorus Limited warehouse, the hazardous chemicals waste seeped into the surrounding water systems. And investigators right now say that these toxins are likely to show up in the food chain. So let's talk more about this with the coordinator for South Durban Community Environmental Alliance. That is, of course, Mr. Desmond D'Sa. Thank you for your time, Desmond, and good morning to you. Some of these hazardous chemicals and pollutants which do pose a threat to the environment as well as the food chain, what is the extent of that damage and what are some of those pollutants?
Well, the figures that have been put forward are not really accurate because the company hasn't released any documents to the society as a whole. But what we do know from the presentations that have been made by government and the company, they're talking about more than 5,000 tons and of different chemicals, so about 1,600 chemicals, which are highly toxic. Already we've seen the destruction and the damage in the Mhlangana tributaries, where there's washed up of many marine different life all dead. Over 3 tons of that was washed up on the beaches, getting the officials to inform the public not to use the North beaches as well, not to swim, not to surf, and not to eat any of those dead fish.
Now, with that being said, Desmond, if I may just jump in there, with that being said, do you have an estimate of, the cost in environmental damage, just also in numbers, in terms of, what this chemical waste has done to the environment?
Well, this is going to be, the cost is always externalized. Most of these major corporations externalize the cost. So you can imagine this will take years. In particular, the health. We know for the fact that the type of chemicals that have been washed up on the beaches and rivers and that was flown into the air where people were breathing, that will take a few years because it doesn't show overnight. Particular cancers, the toxins and furans that would end up in pregnant women. So it's a major cost here. We're looking at as much as the damage is 50 billion throughout the KZN, all the damage in KZN. We think that this cost will take years and might affect a huge population. Quite a number of the areas that have been affected, over 6 areas that have been affected, and also the areas right next door to them. And these are poor and marginalized communities. We don't have access to health, who are not employed. Those are the communities affected the most that we are concerned about. And we certainly believe that the company must be held responsible for that. They must. We're not sure. When we asked them the question about how much of money have they set aside for damage to people's health and well-being, they could not answer that. And I think this is where government should ensure that companies of this nature never come and locate near to people, because if it locates next to people, then the disaster fund must be set in motion, and the company must be held responsible to set aside money in case of damages of this nature, because this is going to take years. But more critically, the immediate need is that there's been no clinics, no health medication provided to the local people who have been affected.
Right. And with that being said, just in line with the provisions of the National Environmental Management Act, I understand that you are part of those, organizations and, groups that say UPL should have actually notified government about some of the, risks associated with storing such hazardous, materials and chemicals within their storage.
The sad part is that not even government knew what was stored there. They didn't even have a permit. They didn't even have a license. According to the National Environmental Act, this would have triggered a license immediately. It would have sent shockwaves. But because we don't have integrated government approach, we are not getting that. So I would say that, yes, this company must be held responsible for illegally operating in that area without no paperwork, no nothing. They took it for granted that if you operate in South Africa or in this part of the area, you did not need to do an environmental management impact assessment to understand the risk, so that the public can make first-hand comments on this, and the public is notified of what's coming right next door to them. In the UPL case, they are very silent. They have not, and we understand because we haven't seen any licenses or any MHI, which is major hazardous installation regulation and documents from them. It's a major problem for the society, and I think it's a lesson for government here that you have to take your job seriously, but more importantly, you've got to enforce and ensure that the regulations are adhered to.
Absolutely, and that's where we'll leave it. But thank you for highlighting this story with us. Desmond D'Sa, coordinator for the South Durban Community Environmental Alliance.